everyone talks about diet, training regimens, sleep, but no one talks about this aspect of, how would you call it, optimizing for training results. And I think because, yeah, it probably has less of an effect as those three that I just mentioned, but this one actually impacts those three. So it's more of a secondary effect. It does have a primary effect, but also a secondary effect. And that is stress management, anxiety management, right? So I've had a period in my life, in my training history, where I was very, very stressed. And I'm not perfect now. I still have stress. I still get tension in my shoulders and my traps. But before, it was so much worse, to the point where it felt like nothing was changing. Not just the muscles themselves felt tight, but my mind was all over the place, and it impacted my sleep, my diet, and my training, its consistency. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about. So in terms of the primary effect, it's pretty well known that constant activation of your nervous system, particularly your sympathetic side of your nervous system, is going to make it so much harder for you to optimally recover and get training adaptations from your training, right? When you go into your training, your goal is to activate the neural pathways, use the nervous system, use the muscle fibers, and then when you come off, those things cannot continuously be activated and used. In order for them to recover, they've got to be relaxed. They've got to be the opposite. They've got to not be used, right? So if you are stressed, if you are anxious, your body is in a state of fight or flight. Fight or flight, yeah, that's right. Or freeze. Then it's going to be so much harder for your body to react and properly adapt to that training that you've been given it. So that's the primary effect of having a high stress, high anxiety. The secondary effect is, as I mentioned, the effect it has on your sleep. So sleep and anxiety kind of have a two-way relationship. It's like correlation versus causation. It's like, does high anxiety cause bad sleep, or does bad sleep cause high anxiety? I think it's most commonly understood that it's a little bit of both. If you're constantly anxious and your body is in this state, it's going to be very hard to shut off. And we all know how important sleep is. I mean, it probably is the most important besides training itself. Some would argue that sleep is more important than like optimal training for results. So yeah, if you don't have your anxiety management down, then you're gonna see hindered progress, put it that way. Diet is just your choices on a daily basis. So it's more about how your anxiety affects your diet choices and how you perceive that anxiety and how it might lead you to make different decisions. But ultimately, it is your choice what you eat, what you put into your body. But it would be, I think it would be wrong to not say that if you're a less anxious person, you probably take care of your body a little bit more. And obviously, the direction of causality is not 100% known there, or at least for me, I don't know it. But I think generally speaking, I think only good things can happen for your diet, for your choices, if you are, you're not facing anxiety or you're managing it well. Thirdly, the training itself. If you are anxious to train because it's in a public place, you've got social anxiety, you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to go outside, you're out embarrassed to train, that's just an extra bit of resistance for you actually doing what you need to do. And we need things in place, or not necessarily things in place, but we need a way of thinking that helps us get around that, and a perception shift which helps us train consistently. There's probably the minority of people have that in calisthenics, because I don't know, just my assumption, but I think it does exist for some people. Some people like train less because of anxiety. But in terms of stress, because I probably should have clarified earlier, stress and anxiety aren't necessarily the same thing. They kind of fall under the same bracket. But stress, like for example, stress financially, stress in relationships, you constantly worrying about those other things, you won't have time to train. You will be hyper focused on the other things. Whereas if those things are in check and you've put in the work for those to be steady and healthy, then you're more likely to train consistently. So they're the secondary effects, right? I think I could go over it forever. You generally get the point that having stress, high chronic stress in your life, having anxiety in your life is going to make your training harder, and I have a lot of personal experience with this that I can attest to. I don't even know if that's grammatically right, if whatever I say, I don't even. Anyway, in terms of management techniques, I think the key perception shift is that it's about your perception of environments. Anxiety it's not a thing that happens when something dangerous happens, it's you perceiving a dangerous thing. For example, I like this example. For example, you're walking through the woods, right? You're in a forest, you're doing like a trail walk, a hike, right? And in the distance you see a big furry creature, brown, large. Your instant thought, it's quite far in the distance, bear in mind, like you can only just perceive what it is. From a distance, that thing looks like a bear, and your brain will go into worst case scenario, that is a bear. Let's assume that you already believe that there are bears in the area, maybe you're in America or some remote place and wherever. Your brain sees that and it's like, fuck, it's a bear, because you think it's a bear, right? And then your body responds, fucking heart rate goes through the roof, blood pressure, and your hands start shaking, you start sweating. Your body is getting ready to run, to fight for its life, right? But in this exact same scenario, that's not actually a bear. It's a person dressed up as a bear who's just like mentally ill and likes to dress up as a bear and like crawl through the forest, right? Just hypothetically speaking. Why does that matter? Why am I saying this? This is really weird. It's because your body is reacting the same way, even though the thing isn't what you believed it to be, right? Your body reacts in accordance with your perception of the situation, not the situation itself. That leads me to this point, is that a change in levels of anxiety often happen because you change the way you think. You need to reframe the things that you find scary, that you find dangerous. And that is just the anxiety side of things. Same with stress. Stress, obviously, I said they're under the same bracket. So with stress, if it's about your work, you're really stressed that you need to perform to a certain level, it's probably because you don't have the trust in yourself to perform, and that job is really important to you for some reason, whether it's financially or whether it's linked more to your purpose or whatever it is, right? If you need to reframe that in a way that helps calm your stress, that helps you get all this tension out of your body, that helps you relax and actually recover from training. And that is up for you to decide. In the same way that if I list the ways that you should think differently about all these things I'm talking about, it will only help so much. The best way to do it is to list them yourself and ask yourself, is this really dangerous? What led me to feel anxious or stressful about this situation? Is it something that I learned in the past that no longer applies today? Like, for example, for me, social anxiety comes from a childhood of being a very sensitive kid, and fearing someone making fun of me and not being able to stand up for myself. Whereas today, logically, I know that if some stranger for some reason has something against me, I don't give a fuck. I will see them as an absolute dickhead. I wouldn't see myself as the problem, right? But still, that anxiety will spark up in me, right? But that change in perception helps you manage it, okay? And so they're the change of thinking, change of perception examples. The other examples I want to give, the other management techniques I want to give is breathing techniques. So the main thing is just breathing deeper. Probably ironically saying this because I have not been breathing deeper all during this recording, but breathing deeper, slower, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. And when you're really stressed, like if you're having I guess you could call it a panic attack, and suddenly you've got a spike in anxiety, like really slow exhales, like crazy slow. I had these a few months ago, and it was primarily due to the job I was doing and other things going on in my life. But like tightness in the chest suddenly, and I feel like the world was collapsing around me. And I'd never had this before, and I considered myself better in terms of managing these things. But in fact, this helped me understand my body even more because I got to experiment with these techniques. One of them is just freaking slow breaths, man, like a few seconds in, but like slowing down the exhale for like 15 seconds, like extremely slow. There's even one that's talked about a lot, as well researched, where it's like a double inhale. So it's like a double sharp inhale and exhale. So that's another stress anxiety management technique. But I think generally, one really general piece of advice that is true, and it kind of bypasses the change the way you think mentality, is changing how your life actually is. So if you're stressed out financially, you kind of have an obligation to your training. If you're passionate about your training, it's really important to you to get into a better position, to stop spending your money like an idiot, right? And that's just one example in one category, and it could be applied to like 10 different things. If you've got stress in your relationships and you feel like what you have with your family is falling apart, maybe you need to spend more time with them. Like, maybe you need to try and be more empathetic and understanding and come together with them rather than being stressed about losing it all. Okay, so I think that covers the video. I actually don't know how long that was. My guess is like 8 minutes. But yeah, thanks for watching. If this benefits you and you think that this advice is worth other people seeing, then like the video. I appreciate it. Bless up.